Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Buddha, the Blessed Noble and fully self-awakened one. I'd forgotten to put my microphone on, so I shall do that now. Okay. So I've chosen the victory verses of the Buddha to end my little five efforts at the Dhammapada. So I shall chant it. This is the one I know, by the way, because we do it every morning. Aneka jati sansarang sandave sangani bisang gaha karaka gawe santo dukkha jati puna punang gaha karaka ditozi puna gehang nakahazi sabate pasuka baga gahakutang visankatang visankaragatan chitan tananang kayamajjaga. So the translation: through many rounds of rebirth have I wandered, looking for the house builder, but not finding him. Painful is repeated rebirth. O house builder, you are seen. You will not build this house again. All your rafters are broken, the ridgepole is destroyed. My chitta is not conditioned, and I have attained the end of all cravings. So I just want to go through this, the Pali there. The word for wander also means to sort of run. So a word like coursing through rebirth after rebirth, I think it gives the idea of that onward going samsara. There's a lovely little word, aneka, which it translates as not one. Therefore, it means many. It's just a nice way of saying it, not one. There's not much there that's the first verse. Now, of course, these are called the victory verses of the Buddha, which there's some idea that he spoke them after his awakening, but I dare say he manufactured them, shall we say. He created them sometime afterwards to express what his kernel insight was, and we shall come to that. So now, the house builder, you have seen, you have been discovered. You have been uncovered. You'll not build a house for me again. Your rafters are broken. Now, the word for rafter is also the word for rib, so that makes sense. The ridgepole, the top of the roof, is destroyed, and that's basically what the Pali says, the top of the roof. Now, the chitta is translated usually as mind, but obviously it can't be part of the khandha, part of the aggregates, because it's not conditioned. The aggregates, which are, of course, your physicality, your feelings, all your perceptions, concepts, all your habits, and momentary consciousnesses that manifest these things, are all conditioned. Now, the word here is vi-sankara. So vi is another way of saying not. And the word there is sankara, right? So it's not conditioned. And then the last verse is tanha, is again this destruction of this wrong desire based on the delusion of the house builder, which of course manifests as greed, aversion, and fear as a basic relationship to the world we live in. The world we live in. So that's the verses. Now, instead of normally speaking, this would evoke then the life of the Buddha, how he became fully liberated, etc., etc. But I think most of you know that. And there's this quite amazing little discourse from the Samyutta Nikaya, the gradual sayings. They're the small discourses. And it's called With Kamaka. So it's about this senior monk. So I'm going to read it, take some time over it, because it's quite delightful. At one time, several senior mendicants or monks were staying near Kosambi at Gosita's monastery. Now, at the time, the Venerable Kamaka was staying at the Jujubi tree monastery, and he was sick, suffering, gravely ill. In the late afternoon, these senior mendicants came out of retreat and addressed the Venerable Dasaka. Please, Venerable Dasaka, go to the mendicant Kamaka and say to him, Reverend Kamaka, the seniors hope you are keeping well. They hope you are all right. They hope your pain is fading, not growing. That its fading is evident, not its growing. So Dasaka wanders off, and I presume it's quite a way because he's living in another monastery. It would have been close by, but at least he's got to go over and find him. And when, of course, he gets to Kamaka and relates this to him, Kamaka says, no, he said, I'm not all right. My pain is terrible and growing, not fading. And its growing is evident and it's not fading. So Dasaka then goes all the way back to the seniors, and the seniors say, ask him, say, Reverend Kamaka, the seniors say that these 5 grasping aggregates, so that's your 5 khandha, have been taught by the Buddha. That is, the grasping aggregate of form, feeling, perception. It's got, and here's a translation from the Sutta Central, which is Sujato's website, where he's translated all the discourses. He's translated Sankhara here as choices, right? Not habits, not volitional conditions, but choices. I thought it was rather nice. And consciousness. Do you regard any of these 5 aggregates as self or as belonging to self? Anyway, off Dasaka goes, and he asks Kamaka this, and he says, the grasp, hold on. And then he says, now, concern this, he says, I do not regard anything among the 5 grasping aggregates as self or as belonging to a self. So Venerable Dasaka goes back and he tells the seniors, and then the seniors say, that is, because he does not see them as self or belonging to a self. If, as it seems, Venerable Kamaka does not regard anything among these 5 grasping aggregates as belonging to a self or a self, then he is a perfected one, with defilements ended. In other words, he's an arahant. So off he goes, Dasaka, to see his poor Kamaka, who's suffering. I mean, he's in pain. And he says, no, I do not regard anything among these 5 aggregates belonging to self. Yet I am not a perfected one, with defilements ended. For when it comes to the 5 grasping aggregates, I'm not rid of the conceit of I am. But I don't regard anything as I am this. So off he goes. Dasaka goes back to these seniors on the other side of the fence. And the seniors send him off again. So the seniors say, the message this time to Kamaka is, when you say I am, what is it that you're talking about? Is it the form or apart from form? Is it feeling, perception? What is it you're talking about? So Venerable Dasaka, Kamaka now gets fed up with this, and he says, what's the point of running back and forth? Bring me my staff and I'll go and see these senior mendicants myself. So off he goes. And when he arrives, of course, the usual exchanging of greetings. And then he sat down to one side. So they say to him, when you say I am, what is it you're talking about? Venerables, I don't say I am with reference to form or apart from form. And that's the same for feeling, perception, choices, sankhara, consciousness, and consciousness. But when it comes to the five aggregates, I'm not rid of the conceit I am. But I don't regard anything as I am this. And then he gives this simile. It's like the scent of a blue water lily or a pink one or a white lotus. Would it be right to say the scent belongs to the petals or the stalk or the pistil? No, Reverend. Then, Reverends, how should it be said? It would be right to say the scent belongs to the flower. In the same way, Reverends, I don't say with reference to form or apart from form. I don't say I am. The same with feeling, perception, conditional volitionings or choices, and consciousness. For when it comes to the five grasping aggregates, I am not rid of the conceit I am, but I don't regard anything as I am this. Although a noble disciple has given up the five lower fetters, they still have a lingering residue of the conceit I am, the desire I am, and the underlying tendency I am, which has not been eradicated. Now, the five lower fetters go with Sotapanna, the stream entrant, right? Something's broken, but not this sense of self. After some time, they meditate observing the rise and fall of the five grasping aggregates. Such is form, such is the origin of form, such is the end of form. And the same with feeling, perception, choices, and consciousness. And they do so, as they do so, the lingering residue is eradicated. And then he gives another simile. Suppose there was a cloth that was dirty and soiled, so the owners gave it to a launderer. The launderer kneads it thoroughly with salt, lye, and cow dung, and rinses it in clear water. Although that cloth is clean and bright, it still has a lingering scent of salt, lye, and cow dung that has not been eradicated. The launderer returns it to the owners, who store it in a chest permeated with scent, and the lingering scent would be eradicated. So in the same way, although a noble disciple has given up the five lower fetters, they still have a lingering residue of the conceit I am, the desire I am, and the underlying tendency I am, which has not been eradicated. And after some time, etc., etc., the lingering residue is eradicated. Now, when he said this, the senior mendicant said to Venerable Khemaka, we didn't want to trouble you with our questions, but you're capable of explaining, teaching, advocating, establishing, disclosing, analyzing, and clarifying the Buddha's instructions in detail. And that's just what you've done. That's what Venerable Khemaka said. Satisfied, the senior bhikkhus were happy with what Venerable Khemaka said. And while this discourse was being spoken, the minds of 60 senior bhikkhus and of the Venerable Khemaka were freed from defilements by non-grasping. So they all became fully liberated. Now, the distinction here is between a view of self and a sense of self. One incident that comes to mind is concerning smoking. You know, there was a time when smoking was not thought to be particularly harmful. And then during the 50s, especially as I remember, 50s and 60s, it slowly became apparent that in fact it caused things like cancer, lung cancer. And of course there was the usual effort by the tobacco companies and any company to protect itself with false science and fake news. But when it finally came through, the science did come through, then people became convinced that smoking actually, caused cancer and death. Now, even though the view of the smoker was changed from being non-harmful to being harmful, did they stop smoking? See? No. So here, even though the view of a self, seeing this psychophysical organism as me is broken with the stream entrant, still there lingers on this idea of me. And it's an underlying tendency. So it's very deeply ingrained. And that me, remember, is the way that this awareness, this satipanya, this intuitive awareness, the Buddha within, experiences itself within the five khandhas. That's the sense of self you get when you become the observer, the feeler, the knower. And of course, you can't get rid of that by an act of will. But what Khemaka is saying, and what he's saying that the Buddha said was, you just keep investigating the impermanence of the five khandhas of this organism, and at some point you'll break through that final delusion and become fully liberated. So the task in hand is very clear. We have to keep meditating, and not only in meditation but in ordinary daily life, to keep on realizing that everything is arising and passing away. It has no substance and therefore is not worth clinging to. So I can only hope my words have been of some assistance, that they have not caused greater confusion, and that you will, by your practice, liberate yourself, as Khemaka did, from all suffering.